Let's talk about love. Okay, so far, Shakespeare has written 17 sonnets to this handsome young man, telling him to have burbas. But after Sonnet 17, everything changes. The poet falls in love with his subject. In the next 108 sonnets, something like a story evolves. A story about the relationship between the poet, an older guy, a commoner, a strange, sensitive writer, and the young man, a man who is younger, probably nobility, rich and hot, going out on the town, misbehaving and breaking hearts. Now, okay, side note, this is maybe a bit not real. Nobody knows for sure about the order of these sonnets, or to whom they were written, or why, or when, or anything. But, this is Shakespeare that we're talking about, so let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story. These sonnets explore the love that the poet has for the young man, and it is not an easy or a simple love. These poems treat love as something to wrestle with, a massive force like gravity or the need to take out all the gummy bears first and then line up all the gummy bears so that you can select which gummy bear you're going to eat. Something that we cannot control but that we always have to deal with. And for Shakespeare, there was so much effort in trying to make love permanent and solid and whole. For him, love was like time. It's a constant battle, there's never enough, but still, it makes the world go round. So the poet's writing these have babies sonnets, and this affection bursts out with the famous Sonnet 18, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? This is about as pure and joyous and hopeful as the poet gets. He says that the young man's beauty, unlike the brief summer, will never fade. He asks for nothing, he just pours out adoration. Now, you get a lot of dusty old Victorian-type scholars saying, "Oh, no, couldn't have been sexual, platonic, deep admiration for another human being." But no, this love was of the blood-pumping variety, the love that makes you feel all toasty inside.
That's the kind of girl to make you wish you spoke a little French.
Sonnet 20, a very complicated one, explicitly says that the poet wishes that the young man had been a woman. And for a woman wert thou first created, till nature as she wrought thee fell a doting, and by addition me of thee defeated by adding one thing to my purpose nothing. It goes on. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, mine be thy love, and thy love's use their treasure. And you don't write about those particular body parts unless you're feeling something. And you don't need to dig out your old-timey dictionary to find out why William used the word prick. But so, okay, maybe the poet's just a little thirsty. This is the hot and heavy teenage love that we all feel when we first fall. But again, not really. Sonnet 21 addresses that, saying, no, this is a sincere love, and so I'm going to be sincere about it. He mocks how other poets make proud compare with sun and moon, with earth and sea's rich gems. But for him, oh, let me true in love, but truly right, and then believe me. Flattery is fake, and this is real. As with a lot of love, though, that has a few fantastic early days before
trouble at mill.
Sonnet 23 shows that this enormous feeling tongue-ties even Shakespeare, drawing from his time in the theater and comparing himself to an actor for getting his lines. And actors are easy to make fun of. Sonnet 25 talks about how he hopes that this love is more stable than the local politics, again trying to create a sense of permanence. But the first big rain cloud on the parade begins in Sonnets 27 to 30, where the poet and the young man are apart from each other. This absence helps the feeling of longing grow to the point where it's all that the poet can think about.
Weary with toil, I haste me to my bed, the dear repose for limbs with travel tired. But then begins a journey in my head, to work my mind when body's work's expired. For then my thoughts from far where I abide intend a zealous pilgrimage to thee, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide, looking on darkness which the blind do see. Save that my soul's imaginary sight presents thy shadow to my sightless view, which like a jewel hung in ghastly night, makes black night beauteous and her old face new. Lo, thus, by day my limbs, by night my mind, for thee and for myself, no quiet find.
There's a quote by a Frenchman. "Absence is to love what wind is to fire. It extinguishes the small and it enkindles the great." And this is a great love, and so it's definitely kindled. But something is wrong. Sonnets 33 and 34 talk about how a beautiful day was swarmed with clouds, which is poetry for "I'm sad now." And Sonnet 35 maybe provides an explanation. "No more be grieved at that which thou hast done." Somebody, probably the handsome young idiot, did something bad. Did he cheat? Did he insult the poet? Did he make a scene at the fancy garden party? Nobody knows. But whatever happened, the next poem starts, "Let me confess that we two must be twain." A breakup. And then it says, "I may not ever more acknowledge thee." The poet, always an anxious guy, is worried about the shame on their reputations because of whatever incident occurred. And it gets even worse with Sonnets 40 to 42, and we see things like, "That thou hast her, it is not all my grief, and yet it may be said I loved her dearly. That she hath thee is of my wailing chief, a loss in love which touches me more nearly." Seems like there's a girl that they both like, and while Shakespeare is happy to let the young man be with the girl, it kills him to know that the young man likes this girl better. But the young man, always a bit of a player, is still stringing the poet along. Going back to Sonnet 40, one of the angriest he writes, the poet basically yells at the young man, throwing the word love around like he's trashing a hotel room. "Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. What hast thou then, more than thou hadst before? No love, my love, that thou mayest true love call. All mine was thine before thou hadst this more. Then, if for my love thou my love receivest, I cannot blame thee, for my love thou usest. But yet be blamed if thou this self deceivest by wilful taste of what thyself refusest. I do forgive thy robbery, gentle thief, although thou steal thee all my poverty. And yet love knows it is a greater grief to bear love's wrongs than hate's known injury. Lascivious grace, in whom all ill well shows, kill me with spites, yet we must not be foes." Hear how he almost hisses those last lines, lascivious grace? That's called assonance, which is using words with similar sounds. It's actually called consonance because it's using consonants and not vowels, but I just wanted to say assonance.
Assonance.
The young man is clearly asking for some of the poet's love, but it's not enough to make the poet feel secure. Still, the poet's feelings continue to grow. The next big chunk, Sonnets 43 to 59, it's not quite a storytelling, but there is a sense that the poet is trying to find somewhere to put his feelings, and making endless pleas to get the young man to reciprocate his love. These poems express a painful, unfulfilled desire. It becomes obsessive, and in sonnets like 57 and 58, he shows how he feels enslaved to his love. Clearly, this love is still not being matched because there is a shift into a pretty desperate tone in the next sequence. The lack of stable love reminds the poet that life is unstable and that time is always running out. For the next few sonnets, the poet decides to go head-to-head against time and death. Sonnet 60 is about how everything decays, but that poetry will endure, preserving both the young man's beauty and the poet's love beyond the cruel hand of time. The next 10 or 15 poems mostly deal with this battle, poetry and love against time and death. But the battle is a heavy one, and the poet does not always feel like he's winning. Almost ready to give up, Sonnet 66 is known as the suicide sonnet. Tired with all these, for restful death I cry. And he laments his sea of troubles and rattles off the whips and scorns of time one right after another. In Sonnet 67, he suggests that maybe even the young man is better off dead. And the wrestle with death continues past death. Check out Sonnet 71, where the poet tells the young man not even to remember him after he dies. The language is incredibly beautiful, but this is not a happy sequence. But dark clouds, if you endure them, give way to the sun. And the poet is not finished, not by a long shot. His journey and the journey of his love have a long way to go. By the time that he reaches Sonnet 75, Shakespeare seems to stop his war, at least for now, and finds a renewal of love and a renewal of hope.
So are you to my thoughts as food to life, or as sweet season showers are to the ground. And for the peace of you I hold such strife as twixt a miser and his wealth is found. Now proud as an enjoyer, and anon, doubting the filching age will steal his treasure. Now counting best to be with you alone, then bettered that the world may see my pleasure. Some time all full with feasting on your sight, and by clean starved for a look, possessing or pursuing no delight, save what is had or must from you be took. Thus do I pine and surfeit day by day, or gluttoning on all or all away.
Clearly the poet still has a long way to go, and we can hear how he's still wrestling with his hunger for love, but lucky for us, at least, he has his appetite back. A huge thank you to Geoff Bullen and Sara Topham, two phenomenal actors and educators, for lending their talents to this episode. Next time, we're going to meet the third character in the sonnets, the rival poet, and see how Shakespeare deals with feelings of jealousy and inadequacy and all that stuff. See you then!